Okay, let's get going then. So I'm
Great.
Welcome to the Good Morning Show for Tuesday morning edition. It's May the 12th. Not that you can tell by the weather this week so far. Our guest today is Ilana Ben-Ari. She's a toy designer turned social entrepreneur. She's the inventor of Empathy Toy and founder of 21 Toys, a passion project that took flight after a school board found her TEDx talk on Twitter and put in their first toy order. She can currently be found at the Center for Social Innovation in Toronto, working on the upcoming Failure Toy, or running around the world teaching, well, these days, maybe not so much, but I did notice on your website that you're doing it online, where you're teaching online schools, offices, how to teach empathy with toys. So, Ilana, welcome. Nice to have you here today. Talk to us about how you developed the Empathy Toy. What was the talk about? And how did it all come to be?
So first, I just wanted to say thank you. And I realized as you're reading out my bio that I definitely need to have an updated version of it. So I'm currently, we're not working from the Center for Social Innovation. So our whole team is remote now. And we have stopped a big part of the work that we do. So I invent toys, and I work with my team on how to adapt those toys and support anywhere from teachers or coaches or organizations in using them to teach skills like empathy and failure and creative collaboration. But a big part of our work is that we run in-person workshops and training programs. So that is definitely being put on pause, and now we're working entirely online. But to answer your question, I invented the Empathy Toy when I was a student in university, and the Empathy Toy was my thesis project. So I originally designed it with the visually impaired community, with the CNIB, and what I discovered was that when I was using it with students who were born with or developed visual impairments, I had it so that they would play with their sighted classmates. So I would test it in schools during the day, but then at night I would test it with the sighted adults in my studio. And that's when I discovered very quickly that the toy was just as impactful and just as challenging for multiple ages and abilities. So jump forward a number of years, I decided to start my own business. And the Empathy Toy was the first in a series of toys, with the idea that toys in general can teach what textbooks can't. And beyond schools, we're in over 52 countries. So just through word of mouth alone, teachers and schools are hearing about us. But when we first ran our demo with a group of teachers to teach them how to use the toy with their students, very quickly we discovered that that was actually a professional development workshop. So we're also in a number of organizations, so Fortune 500 companies, banks, law offices. We have executive MBA programs that are using our Empathy Toy to teach empathy in business. So we'd like to say it's from ages 6 to CEO, and you can use it in groups as small as 2 and as large as 200.
Wow. You know, when I think of developing a toy, Ilana, I think of messy things, plastic pieces that parents step on, ooey gooey things, furry things that speak, but never a toy about empathy. What spoke to you about creating a toy that addressed this issue of empathy, of all things?
Yeah, so my original brief in school wasn't to design a toy, it was actually to design a navigational aid. So what that means is the design process actually starts with empathy. So I went to the library to read about visual impairment, and then very quickly realized that I should actually talk to people who are living with it and their friends and family. And that's when I discovered that there was a huge social and emotional gap between the visually impaired and the sighted community. So that's when I gave myself my own brief, which was, I think I could design a game, and then eventually realized it would be a toy that developed empathy, but at its core, it allowed for anyone playing to work on their communication, to essentially the foundations of orientation and mobility, which is the training that the visually impaired go through. It's where am I going? How do I get there? So I thought if I could turn that into a game and then eventually a toy, there could be something there. So it's a little bit of just how my brain works.
Right.
But I just finished designing a toy that teaches failure last year. And it's a very strange process, but my background is industrial design. So that means I both have an expertise, I guess you would say, in physically manufacturing things. But more importantly, design is about understanding a little bit of everything. So anything from psychology to anthropology to engineering to art. And so what I love about toys and games as a medium is that they're not taken as seriously, but they are the first educational tools that we use. And I think that there's this weird thing that happens between kindergarten and grade 1, where we understand that toys and play in general and open-ended play is how we relate, how we communicate, how we understand ourselves and others. And then for some reason, we decided that's like no longer how you learn. So something happens the summer before grade 1, and then we're like, well, we don't need to learn that way anymore. Learning is about memorization. It's about tests. It's about schoolwork, and play is now recess. So I think a lot of the inspiration that I have is from designers who understand the value of play and objects and human connection. But it's also very much inspired actually by the inventor of kindergarten, who started kindergarten, in fact, by inventing a series of toys.
Hmm. You know, Ilana, when we look now at leadership and teams of the future, we're going to need empathy when working together as people, teams, employees. And we're going to eventually, you know, we're as we return to work eventually, and you know, more and more, we're going to need empathy more and more, because we're going to come back now into this environment shaped and molded by maybe some of the trauma that's going on, or the learning, or our experiences of what's going on now. What's your take on that in terms of the need for empathy? Probably it's going to be on the rise in a work situation moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, even before this scenario, the World Economic Forum has talked about social and emotional skills and creativity being the top job skills. And they had said in a report in like 2015, 2016, that in 2020, it would be the number one job skills. And we've been talking about that for a long time. So the Satya Nadella, who's the CEO of Microsoft, has talked about reinventing Microsoft with empathy. Stuart Butterfield, who was on the founding team of Flickr, and actually started Slack, talks about empathy being the number one job skill. So it's something that's felt like in the last year since we started, I would say maybe 2 years into us starting, it started to feel like more and more organizations and schools were understanding the value of it. What I'm finding now in particular is so interesting that so many people are reaching out to us. So we've been able to move our in-person empathy toy workshops online. You still have the physical toys, you're still playing it where you're getting a physical pattern. It's put into a certain shape and you need to describe that to one or more people. But now we can do that over Zoom, for example. We can turn off our videos and see what it's like when you can't see people's faces and you're giving complex instructions. What if we got rid of your audio and you can only communicate with a chat window? And very quickly we realized that it's not so much about saying we all have to be more empathic. Everything that we're doing is about the fact that we never took empathy 101. We never took failure and resilience 101. So because it wasn't something that we were able to explore or analyze or understand, so many of us are walking around without the ability to gain self-awareness about it, as well as awareness for others. So we're so excited that toys and games, and I think all of us have seen versions of this, where you start to unlock and see your own behaviors, that it's in a safe way that you can start to unpack it. So even in the last 2 months, we've moved all of our workshops online, and we've had anything from talent and learning department heads to teachers to people who are working in quite huge organizations that are saying, you know, we're looking for something interactive and fun, but right now it's so important that we check in with each other, and we need to find out what is the new balance of bringing a bit of our personal lives into our work, but understanding that we bring our whole selves in. So what I think is the most exciting is that so many of the people that have used our toys and that we work with are in HR departments. They're the ones that get really excited when we say things like, the future of work is human. They're not the ones that necessarily be convinced, but sometimes they really need a lot of support from the leaders in their organizations. And I think now more than ever, we're all collectively experiencing some level of trauma and challenge. But it's also an incredible moment for leadership and compassion and empathy. But you won't get there if you don't make the space for that, if you don't make that a priority.
Right.
So we're just looking at how we can really help more teams and more people have those conversations.
Yeah. Have you seen a surge then and a spike in sales and since this all began as a result?
Yeah. I mean, that's difficult to answer. I would say, so I'm a bootstrapping entrepreneur. This is the first business I've run. Being a small business owner without a pandemic is already one of the hardest things you're ever going to do. The challenges that get thrown on you on a day-to-day basis when you're running a business is immense. Add to that, if you're inventing things, if you are, we don't have any investors. That was for a number of reasons, that's a really important choice of mine. Also, the numbers are really not good for women to get support. So we've successfully been able to get into 52 countries, and I've been building my team, but it's definitely always been a really big challenge, and I'm really proud of what we've done. But yeah, realistically, in the span of 72 hours, we lost 90% of all of our book sales, like booked business, not even the business that was about to come down the pipeline. And much like most entrepreneurs, when your monthly overhead is in the 5 to 6 figures, one bad month could mean having to close your doors, but a few bad months. So we were definitely code amber, code red, somewhere between that. So it was a really, really scary moment for our team. But I'm also part of a lot of entrepreneur communities who are experiencing similar things. We still sell physical toys, but they go to schools, they go to companies.
Right.
All of our in-person workshops, my team was just in Cairo, London. We were about to go to Peru, the UK and the US, all over Europe, and everything just in 72 hours stopped. The good news is that that all happened that Friday the 13th, the famous Friday the 13th in March. But by that Monday, we had a number of clients reach out and say that they were really looking forward to the workshops, but also they were really struggling with moving their teams online. And so just last week, we just booked our first 5 online workshops. So we've been able to be quite creative and resilient. So we've definitely been having to practice what we teach. It's still going to be a long road ahead, but I would say that we are incredibly optimistic that this is, for us at least, a really amazing opportunity to connect with our global community. We've been so overwhelmed with how much work it is to run physical workshops and physical training that we haven't had the capacity or the ability to move so many things online. So we just started running, and they're now we're thinking every 2 weeks. We just ran our second one. Our next one is I think in about a week, a global community call. So anyone in the world can join. And we've had people from Hong Kong, Australia, people that we've emailed with over the years, but haven't had a chance to actually see their faces. So there's a lot of positive getting through it. But I think of myself as being really lucky. I think I have an incredible team, and I think we have the right skills. And frankly, we were able to very quickly adapt to be able to offer something online that both worked, but also was really relevant to this moment. But I really feel for a lot of the other entrepreneurs in my community that can't do that.
I know.
And it's yeah, sometimes it's just about holding space for people, and just telling them that you're thinking of them.
Yeah. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a perfect example of empathy at play. I mean, by definition, empathy is the capacity to understand or feel what another person is experiencing. within their frame of reference. And that's also the, that is the capacity to place oneself in another one's position or another one's shoes. How does the empathy toy achieve that end for teams that engage in the learning and the interaction with the toy?
Mm-hmm. So the way that it works is that one or more people are given this abstract pieces of wood that have different materials, textures, or shapes, and they connect in hundreds of ways. And so when it's in an online version, we still have physical toys, and they are either with people who already have them, or we're still able to ship. So we've taken our full kits that otherwise would go to a school or an office, and we split them up. So in one kit, we can split it up into 4 unique sets that each have 5 pieces and a blindfold, and we can ship those to people's homes directly. So to play it online, you need at least 2 people with physical toys. And what ends up happening is that there's multiple ways to play it. So the way that we'd play it in person is still played online. You're given a built pattern, and then you need to describe that pattern so one or more people can recreate it with their identical pieces of wood. The challenge is that you're blindfolded. So you can play it that way online. The way that we've adapted it to include more people is that a lot of people, we can send photographs of the pattern, and we can send them photographs of different perspectives. And suddenly you're describing something that is 2D. You're only seeing it from a certain angle, where somebody else doesn't just have the physical pieces, but their video is off on Zoom. There's versions of it where we don't have video or audio. And very quickly, what happens with all of our games is that in 5 to 15 minutes, you gain huge insights into how you deal with patience, frustration, but more importantly, how do you creatively communicate? So you can take what happened in the game and you can connect it to a real life scenario. So for us, that could mean anything from, there can be really challenging conversations that you have in your team check-ins. So what does it mean if somebody's video is off? Does it mean that you think like, oh, they're just in bed and they're slacking off? Does it mean that they're not paying attention? What if when you're writing in a chat window, someone hasn't responded? Did they check out, or are they waiting for instruction? They don't want to interrupt. So there's a lot of assumptions that happen, especially with remote work. And the foundation of that is really a lot about trust. So it's a really good opportunity to, in a playful way, better understand different behaviors and people's techniques, so that really you can develop and build more trust in your team, and more understanding. And also you can there's a lot of fun stuff that happens as well.
Yeah. I like how you pivot. Whose idea was it first? Well, I have another question about the toy and the results, but whose idea was it to pivot this way? Was that yours, or is it you and a few others in your team? Do you have an inner sort of, circle that you go to discuss and brainstorm when issues and challenges come up?
So we're a really lean team. So the core team is 5. Mm-hmm. And we have 15 contract facilitators. So right now it's just the core team. We're looking for opportunities to bring more of our contract facilitators in. And the combination is everyone kind of has their own department. We're very cross-disciplinary. So I'm the CEO. I also lead a number of departments, and I'm responsible for the invention and creation of the toys. But where that gets handed off is our director of training and facilitation, Ryan. Will then take, when he came on, he joined me within my first year of starting 21 Toys. So he used to be a teacher. So he initially was hired to come on to go to all the schools that had been using our toys in the existing guidebooks and packaging. And he was able to write field notes on all the ways the teachers were adapting it. And through that, Ryan then updated our guidebooks. And then the next step was that he is a lead in designing the workshops and then the training programs that we built because of how we're training. So the team in general, we'd run online workshops training before, so we knew it was possible. But yeah, Ryan Ryan said, okay, give me a minute. And he came back and he came up with some really incredible modifications, which is a big part of how we work. But our process is that everyone kind of has ownership over things, but because it's incredibly collaborative, we were asked by a client on a Sunday. Ryan and I chatted on the Monday. I think by Tuesday, we were ready to start testing it out, and we played it with the team and immediately got feedback and iterated on it. So the core of our team is very much, I think just because I'm a designer, it's about the design process. So there is ownership and people own things, but because it's so collaborative, very rarely would it be one person's idea. It's more of a collective effort. But Ryan absolutely led the charge on jumping in and going, he's coming up with so many different ways to use it. And we even had a call just 2 hours ago today where I'm being asked to give a keynote with a group of 50. And then we figured out there's another way where we can actually print out the photographs and put those in mailers. So yeah, we're able to flex our creative muscle a lot right now.
I love it. And I like how, you've implemented the aspect of design, because you're right, design is in everything we do. Whether you go to buy coffee at Starbucks, the design of the cups and the layout and the color scheme and the chairs and, designs in everything. In terms of the toy and the interaction and everything, when you work, say, with a team, or you're teaching online, what improvements do you see in terms of team performance and individual performance that take part in the interaction and the team building that the toy and the learning brings? What improvements do you see?
What improvements for like teams?
Yeah, teams and individuals. How does it help them be better human beings, and better, more cohesive teams?
Yeah, well, I can speak to kind of the two extremes of what we've learned so far. So we had a high school in Winnipeg. A few years ago, their guidance counselor would be using our empathy toy with one of her classrooms. And the guidance counselor, the principal, and the vice principal saw an opportunity to use the toys to actually encourage the students to become the teachers. So what they did was that they actually gave if you click on community actually on our website, if you click on the orange community, and then you click on that first one, empathy-based leadership program. So what they did was they put the toys into the students' hands, and the students started running workshops with their friends, family, peers on empathy. So they played the toys and then they opened up discussions. And we didn't know this, but the school over 2 years was tracking how many times students were being sent to the office around conflict. And thanks to the program, they said that they had an 85% reduction.
Wow.
Which surprised us. But we got a phone call. That's the video that you're looking at, that's the mayor of Winnipeg. So he reached out to us to give us, and the students, those are the students that were part of the program, an honor for the work they're doing around empathic leadership. And also a big part of Winnipeg, they have a big amount of initiatives around reconciliation and justice. And so It was just a really incredible opportunity to see the power of putting the toys into students' hands. How much just those kind of conversations around empathy can have them start to reflect on how do they relate to each other, how do they relate to their friends and family, and how can they step back as opposed to react. At the exact same time that was happening, we were in talks with one of the largest banks in Canada who had said they were really happy with the workshops we'd run with their bank leaders, but they wanted to get certified and have their own internal facilitators running the workshops. So they essentially said, could we get that program that the students got? And so we're now in our third year of a multi-year partnership with that bank, and they've reached, I think they've reached, at least 6,000. I think the number is escaping me, but thousands and thousands of their employees with our toys, all the way up to senior managers to new hires. And the way that they do that is that they are able to run sessions with anything from 20 to 200 or 300 of their employees. And while it's not the first time the employees are hearing about empathy, it's the first time they're getting the opportunity to learn about it in a tangible way.
Right.
So they're able to have a personalized experience, and then they can go, what does this have to do with my job? And so the session is to connect, like, actually this has to do with everything about your role and your work. And it also has to connect to our core values. Empathy is a big part of this organization's core values. So it's been pretty amazing to see it span across those age groups, and kind of reinforces the idea that we're all capable of learning this skill and capable of improving it and better understanding each other. We just need to be given the tools and the space to do it.
How do you feel when you see, Ilana, the results you got, like in Winnipeg in the schools? How does that make you feel? Because your journey has not been easy. I mean, you crashed on a friend's couch for a few months getting this up and running. So, I'm sure then you had thoughts of, I give up. I'm going to go get a real job, right? So how does it make you feel?
Yeah. I mean, it's so overwhelming. And I mean, the journey has not ended. I wrote a Medium post called These Aren't My Pants, which was just about the idea that I think as our idea has really caught the attention of so many people. And that makes me, especially as a designer, so incredibly proud. But we started getting a lot of press. So Time Magazine has written about us, calling the toy future technology. We've been featured in Fast Company. We've been really lucky. We've gotten a lot of attention. We've won a number, I think about 17 awards now, which is great. But yeah, it hasn't been easy. Crashed on a friend's couch for a year. Airbnb my bedroom until recently. Still on that journey. Launching a business is one thing. Maintaining and sustaining a business is a completely other thing. And we're in that phase right now. So we're growing. Right before COVID hit, we were about to hire 2 more full-time people. We're about to launch our second toy. But yeah, the idea of it not being doable or worth it, I wouldn't lie if I said that didn't enter my brain at least a few times a day in the first few years. Now it doesn't appear as often. Definitely had an existential moment when everything hit recently. But I continue to be surprised and inspired by our community. I think what's amazing about entrepreneurs is if you invent and you put something out there that you really believe in and you really believe that it works, once you start getting proof and traction that it does work, on your worst days, you're more likely to have somebody else show up and say, hey, this really worked. This really changed my life, or this is how it's impacted me. And you need that. You need that to sustain, because you only have so much energy to tell yourself that you're making a difference and that this makes sense and this is worth it. I rely on my community a lot these days to reinforce that. And then the Winnipeg story on top of all of that, I was raised in Winnipeg, which the school didn't know. And I wasn't just raised in Winnipeg, I was raised in the north end of Winnipeg, which has a bit of a reputation. So I think when the students found out that the inventor of the toy they'd been using for 2 years grew up down the street from them, I think that added an extra element. So I also got to, my dad and grandparents were pretty proud. Well, I got to meet the mayor. So that was an exceptionally heartwarming moment in the history of the company, for sure.
You're coming up with the failure choice. So I'd like to have you back and talk about the notion of failure, because for a lot of people, failure can be
absolutely
totally gutting. And then, we sometimes don't come back, and then we create a lot of stories. So we'll have to have you back.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see a distinction between how kids interact and what they derive from playing with the toy and embracing and the learning as compared to adults? Like, is there a distinction or a difference that you see between adults and kids?
So what I would say is I do think that, so first I would say every person that plays it reacts differently, because it's a reflection of their own personality and then a reflection of that group dynamic. So you'll still be you. So like David, you would be you playing it, but you'd be very different if you're playing it with a friend versus a family member versus like a coworker, someone you maybe get along with, someone who's a total stranger. But the one thing I would say that we've definitely seen the difference with kids and adults is adults are way more fearful of getting it wrong. They don't want to find out that they're bad at empathy, which is not the point of the game. You can't fail at empathy. And the same with the failure toy. More and more adults just get quite scared. But one of the ways that I bootstrapped my way through 21 Toys was I was a karaoke DJ for a year. And I like to compare getting people comfortable with the toys to like karaoke, where people are shy, they don't, but if you pick that right song and they get on stage, they are not leaving that stage. And I find it's the same way with the toys, where I get so excited, especially with adults who either are sitting here because they're being forced to attend some professional development workshop, and they're like, okay, are we in trouble? Like, why are we learning about empathy right now, or failure? The ones who are the most pessimistic or don't quite get it. And then the second you put the toys in their hands and they're like, interesting. And then they start playing, and next thing you know, you're like, we got to wrap up. We have to get to the next game. We have to go to the debrief. That always makes me happy. And yeah, I always connect it to kind of the karaoke DJ moments that I've had in the past, where you're like, they'll find their favorite song. Yeah. We won't be able to get them off the stage.
Yeah, they'll sing it well or really badly, and it's still fun, right?
Yeah, it's still fun. Exactly.
When a company, you just kind of touched on it, when a company or an organization hires you or a distributor to lead this kind of training, what is the need they feel that they have? What are they seeking in order, in terms of transforming the culture in the organization? Like you said, like some people think, oh, did we screw up? So is there a need on their end, or is there an internal event maybe that's triggered their quest or their interest in empathy training?
Yeah, so I mean, I would say for schools, and I would say it the same way for organizations. The ones that we're working with aren't the ones that need convincing that this is important. They're the ones that said, we need to teach this. We don't have a tool that seems to resonate. So for organizations, they'll have empathy in their core values. They're doing design sprints, and they need to teach empathic observation and communication. One of our clients is a huge tech company, and they have brought us in to work with their UX designers to explain the role of empathy in the design process. So we're really meeting people where they understand it as a value. They are seeking a tangible experience that can be personalized, so that they can take it from this abstract, invisible idea into a real experience. And I think that's what makes it really stick. And I think that's the value of a lot of like physical products and toys. So there's that element for schools and organizations. And then there is another interesting side to this, which is that executive coaches, facilitators, essentially entrepreneurs, are getting our toys, getting trained on them, and then they're using our toys for their business. So their toys have let them get new clients, reach new audiences, and add complements to their existing programming. So we've found it really curious when companies would start, where we have a number of organizations where their website on their homepage is our product. And so they're finding it's a great conversation starter, but it's also something that's helping them build their own business, which has been a really fascinating transition into what we're offering.
Yeah, we're living in such a sea of uncertainty right now, and then we're also facing new technology and maybe the incoming AI technology, and maybe humans aren't going to be as big a part of the picture. Are you hopeful, like, that when you hear companies and schools still talking about empathy, Daniel Goleman's work in emotional intelligence, resiliency, communication skills, leadership, are you hopeful still that humanity will keep it together, even though we're going to be a little bit more technical and reliant on our
well, look, I'm a big Kurt Vonnegut fan. So I think when it comes to technology, we're not anti-technology, and if anything, I think the tools will always adapt and change. What we like to say is that the future of work is human. so anything that you do that can be automated, like financial industries, legal industries, things that can be replaced with templates and with automation are the most at risk, where it's the ones where there's that human touch, those social and emotional skills, creativity. A computer can't yet replace that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I actually think that this is an incredible moment in time for creatives, for social scientists. And I think that I don't think we need to be scared of AI. I think we just need to be very practical, and we need to understand that it is happening, that the fourth industrial revolution is currently happening. And what's interesting now is that the behavioral change between now and, like, if you told me in February that the entire world would be online, if they are running their business,
Yeah.
No one would believe you.
No.
But I truly believe that humans aren't just adaptable. Like, that's our brand. Like, if there's one thing that humans have as their, like, brand, it's that we're creative and adaptable. That's why we've existed for so long. And so I think my optimistic view and hope is that we start going in a direction where we're able to really understand that it's all about humans, it's about connection, and just investing in better understanding how that can be a tool for change. But with the very real realities, the challenges that we have coming down the pipeline, like we have very complex challenges that we need to navigate.
Yeah.
And I think collectively, there is so much out there that is brilliant and is motivated. So yeah, my hope is that this is a good springboard for kind of that next stage of change and evolution. So that's my optimistic hope.
I love it. And I think we should end there. I have other questions to ask you, but it just means I'm going to have you back, okay? Because I like about this notion of failure, because it's really it's a huge thing for a lot of people. We're all afraid to do something because why? We're afraid of success or we're afraid of failure. So that's a topic I'd like to have you back to discuss sooner rather than later. We'll get a hold of you to reach you and to work with you, Ilana. So it's your turn. Shameless self-promotion time.
So the easiest way to find out more about us is actually just to Google Empathy Toys. The company is 21 Toys, so it's the words written out, 21toys.com. You can find us on social media at 21toys. And then as long as you get the spelling of my name right, it's Ilana, two boys' names, Ben-Ari. I'm the only one on the internet. So
yes,
it's not too hard to find me online.
Yeah. And you're involved too in the business community in Toronto. You're involved with SheO. We met through my work at Enterprise Toronto a few years ago, where you spoke at a couple of events, Chris Rickett and everything. So yeah, you do a lot of work with other entrepreneurs, supporting them in their journey and saying, hey, it's okay, you can make it, but here's the long and the short of it, right? So yeah.
I hope it's helpful. I definitely think I like to be as real about how scrappy you need to be, because I think a lot of the times entrepreneurship can feel very inaccessible, like business is only for the rich. So I'd like to hope that I'm an example that, like, you can be broke as a joke and figure it out, but it doesn't mean it's going to be easy.
No.
It's going to be challenging at every turn.
Okay.
But the biggest thing you can have is to have a community that supports you. So
right. Even the rich,
and I still lean on them.
Even the rich are struggling. I mean, you look at Richard Branson,
absolutely,
who owns Virgin Airlines, and the airline business has been just decimated, right? So
yeah,
this is what's going on now is affecting everybody. I so appreciate and I so appreciate this. Thanks for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
A joy, really, a true pleasure.